Since September 11, 2001, our country has experienced many changes. We've had emotions and fears that have been foreign to us, and we've seen images that will stay with us forever. During NBC25 News, we brought you reaction from the public and our country's leaders. But one voice has not been heard, the voice of our country's future. Over the next half hour, we'll hear from local children and see how patriotism works from a kid's point of view.
Patriotism to me means like pledging your allegiance, your loyalty to your country.
It's more like a feeling to me that I get when I see a flag or people praying after a national tragedy.
Patriotism to me means to be able to protect and serve with your country's ideals and interests with pride.
Do you feel like you know a lot more about patriotism now since 9/11? And do you feel that your parents and your adults are more patriotic than young people?
I don't think it's really like the parents being more patriotic than the kids. I think that we're all more patriotic because of what happened. It's not really who's more patriotic.
Do you think it's the kind of thing that maybe in time that maybe we'll take for granted and we'll kind of forget again?
I think that since September 11th that our patriotism has definitely gotten more great, and I know that in time it'll probably fade away, but it'll always be stronger than what it was before.
I think after September 11th, the entire nation came together and everybody was more patriotic. The same thing happened during World War II, and after World War II was over, a few years later, patriotism went down in scale. So I think in a few years, maybe even less than that, that people will still be patriotic, but not as much as they were in the year or so following September 11th.
Are there other ways that we can be more patriotic? Are there other things that maybe we can do in the school or maybe in your neighborhood or at home?
I think that just the general attitude of everyone around, just how they act and how they feel towards each other could help.
Yeah, in the neighborhood, more people could fly their flags, and in school, like, we could just take part in more things and be more respectful because of everything that happened.
I think in schools they could have the students recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and more people could put out flags, and that we can come together more.
Well, you mentioned the Pledge of Allegiance. I know you guys have heard the controversy that someday maybe the Pledge of Allegiance won't be recited, at least in the public schools. What do you make of that? Does that sadden you? Do you understand why that's happening?
Yes, that saddens me. It seems like now they only enforce the younger children in elementary to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The older children don't say it as much, and that is not, I think that saddens me a lot.
I think that the under God part of the pledge is very important to the country because the pledge was actually written in 1892, but the under God part was not added until 1954 because our president thought that was an important part of our country, and they amended it into the pledge, the Congress did. But our country was founded on religious beliefs, and people came to this country for religious freedom, and we need to recognize that. And that's also part of patriotism, is religion is a part of this country, and we need to keep it that way.
I guess the other view of that, the person that's brought this suit in the courts feels like he's an atheist and feels like the term God is being forced down his throat. And if this country was founded on religious beliefs, he has a right to maybe not have God thrown in his face.
But I also think that nobody made such a big deal about this until after September 11th. The pledge has been said I've said the pledge in my school since I was started school and preschool, and I've said it for years, and it's just different now. People are making different situations, and they're blowing, I think, some things out of proportion. It's just basics. Some people don't believe in God, some people do, some people believe in different gods, but our country was founded on this God, and we need to keep it that way.
It doesn't necessarily have to mean one specific God. I think that you should just think of it as whoever you believe in or whatever you look up to. I mean, it shouldn't have to be changed just because of one side's views on that.
I think the person that brought up the issue of the pledge being unconstitutional, if he's complaining about it so much, I don't think he should get Christmas off because that's a religious holiday. He shouldn't have spring break because that's a Christian holiday. It's a religious holiday. And this may sound kind of strange, but he shouldn't be able really to have cash in the form of like dollar bills because it says, "In God we trust" on it. Is he going to make a big deal about this and go try to change our money now and change our holidays? I think if he's going to do this, I think he should just keep it to himself and not make a big national issue out of it.
I know, Lauren, in the Kersley schools, they have a group that kind of gets around this issue by meeting, by having Bible studies in the public schools. What do you guys make of that concept? Is that a way to get around this kind of situation?
I think that having Bible studies in schools is a good idea, but I don't think that it's a replacement for having that in the Pledge of Allegiance. I think if you were to take that out of the Pledge of Allegiance, it would be like removing a part of our national history.
Ian, you said you go to a Christian school, right? Does it make you feel more thankful that you have this opportunity in your school, that really is not an issue because you're allowed to talk about God in your school?
I am glad that I go to a Catholic school like I do, a Christian school, because we can still say the Pledge of Allegiance and have our rights to pray and everything along with it.
I go to a Catholic school, so we still say the pledge every day, and I think it's very important, and we should all, especially after September 11th, to reject the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't really think that's very patriotic, and we should always say the Pledge of Allegiance every day.
What does it mean to be an American? And do you feel since September 11th it means more to you to be an American than ever before?
To be an American, it means to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And people, since September 11th, I think people stress that those laws now more than they usually do.
I think we're really lucky to be Americans because in America we have a lot of different kinds of people. We're all unique. There's lots of different nationalities, and we're all into different things. So it's like in other countries, they all have to obey different rules, and they can't look their own specific way they want to look. They all have to look the same, and I think we're really lucky to be in America.
It doesn't matter who you are to be an American. You can be black, you can be white, you can be part Indian, Australian, anybody. It doesn't matter. That's what America is about.
To be an American means to me to have equal civil rights, be the same as everyone else, be able to vote for what I want, to be able to say what I feel.
To be American, you could go anywhere you want and have your own religious beliefs. In some other countries, you couldn't. That means a lot.
In a free country, you can make a lot of your own choices, and in a not-so-free country, you have to obey a lot of rules and can't make a lot of your own choices.
In a free country, we can say whatever we want and dress like we want and print things that we want. And in other countries, you could get arrested or killed for doing those things.
In the past year, our country has united in a way that reminds the older generation of days gone by and inspired the younger generation to look to the past. Do you have a newfound respect for older Americans who may have fought for this country way back before you were born? World War I, World War II. You hear your grandparents and older adults talk about fighting for their country, and it probably doesn't hit as home with you as much. But is it hitting more home with you? Do you understand a little bit more as to why that was so important and how maybe they've paved the way for you?
No, I think it's very important because one of my grandpas, he fought in World War II when he was only 17. He lied about his age so he could go defend our country on a ship. And I really respect that, and I think he did a great job. And just being in a war and seeing like all the tough times everyone's going through, I think that'd be really difficult. And they went through a lot.
Because of older people who fought in the war, something like this could have happened years ago and could have been even more devastating. And because of them, you know, maybe it didn't. And so, yeah, you do owe them a lot of respect for what they did.
I know that I had both my grandpas went and fought in World War II, and I know that since September 11th, it's really hit home, and I've had much more respect for them since then.
In light of what's happened, do any of you think about maybe that's something you may want to do in your future to join the military service and maybe fight for your country? Would it possibly mean more to you to do something like that?
I think it is a good thing to fight for your country, but I wouldn't do it.
I'd be horrible in any kind of army or war and all that. But I think there's so many other things that you can do just to help and support your country. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, joining the army, things like that.
I've always had a fascination with flying, and since September 11th, it's really made me want to join the Air Force and go out there and defend our country. I think it'd just be a great experience and a great opportunity to help my country.
Well, my dad's in the Navy, and he's retiring next year, but all my brothers and sisters want to be in the military to help fight for their country. But I don't think I'd be very good in the military. I don't think I'm strong enough to do that. But I'm very proud of my dad for joining the Navy and supporting our country.
Since September 11th, there's been a lot of information given to the public about the events that transpired. But have kids been told enough?
No, because they don't want kids to be scared, but kids will be scared if they don't know enough about it. Because if you get only a little clip of the information, then you'll probably worry a lot more about it.
For some kids, I don't think that they've learned enough about September 11th because some people don't want them to because they think they might be afraid, it might scare them.
Yes, I think the kids should be told about that and reminded because that was a big thing, and they need to know how sad that was, that had to happen just to have people know that God is still there and he wants to take care of them.
I think they should be told more about what happened.
Why?
Because we should know, and I think not that many kids know about what happened, and they should know so they can pray for those people who died.
While some people might think it's important to protect kids from information, fearing it might frighten or worry them, it's obvious most kids want to know about the events that shape our world. However, in a time when adults are searching for answers and reasons, is it possible for children to understand?
Not exactly, because there's things that we still don't understand, like why did they damage our country and what did we do wrong?
I want to learn a little bit more about why the terrorists had attacked. I know they attacked because they don't think that America should stand out like that. They think that pretty much we're pigs.
Well, overall, I think that it was just a tragedy, and I really wish it wouldn't have happened, but it did. And I think that we need to prove to the terrorists that they can't, hurt us. They can't do anything to us because we are stronger than them.
This is our first terrorist, well, I'm not going to say our first terrorist attack because we've had Pearl Harbor and this, but imagine countries like Israel, who go through this stuff every day. And I think that if we can move on, I think that will give strength to countries like that and show them that if we can, you can.
How do you think people in other countries see Americans? After 9/11, we did have a group of countries around the world rally around us, France, Canada, England. But there are other countries, people in other countries that don't exactly envy our lifestyle. How do you think people in general in other countries around the world view Americans?
Well, I know that some countries don't like Americans, but I think some of them are probably jealous of America because we have so much more than they do, and we get, the freedom of speech. We get to be so much more free, and the other countries don't get that kind of thing. So I think that some of them are probably jealous.
Some countries, see us as spoiled or, that we don't have the right beliefs. But I think it's mostly just because they don't know. They've been told one thing that, isn't true, but they just don't know. If they could come over here and see for themselves how Americans really are, they would think differently.
In other countries, well, some of them, they're not as family-like as we are. After September 11th, we became together, kind of. We have different nationalities and races and everything, and we have different beliefs, but after that, we're more as one. And I think that because of that, some of the other countries became kind of jealous, I guess you could say, or envious, because they don't have that. And that's what's special about America, and that's why they want to get here. I know I would.
I think that we can change their thoughts and ideas through charity and what we do for them, not necessarily like trying to make ourselves look better, but if we really mean what we're doing.
Do you think this generation has a lot of power to change things?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, we have the power pretty much to do anything. I mean, that sounds so cliche, but we really do. And as long as we are showing things by our actions, then, we can do anything.
Do you think young people don't get enough credit for the kind of power they have and the opinions that they have? Do you think your opinions are taken seriously?
I think that our opinions sometimes are sort of pushed aside. They're not really looked upon just because of our age, but I think that our opinions really do matter and they should be taken seriously.
I think that they underestimate us because of how old we are, and they think that we're not mature enough as an adult because they have lived longer than us and experienced more things that we have. I think that they're just underestimating us.
Yeah, I think they are taken seriously because just like right now, we're speaking our opinions on September 11th, and our voices count.
I think the children now who have seen the things that are happening and have seen how America has come together, they will be more patriotic when they get older, and that will reflect on the next generation.
Over the past year, we've grieved for the lives that were lost on September 11th and sought out those who attacked us. But how has our country changed and what fears have been left behind?
Since September, a lot of things have changed. More people are turning to God, and everywhere you look, there's a flag here and a flag there. But we shouldn't just show patriotism in times when our country needs our support, but we should show it all the time.
I think people have become more patriotic since September, and they have helped a lot more than they used to.
I think that a lot of people respect the country a lot more and don't take it for granted as much.
I think that since September 11th, being an American, you just want to prove yourself to those people that don't know you, but they hate you. You just want to prove that you're something different, that, you really are a human being, and you have to think about that in the same sense with them.
I've heard a saying that fear is demanded, and the terrorists demanded fear. And they might have got a little bit, but they didn't get any at all from me, or I don't believe from a lot of people. But I believe that they'll get theirs pretty soon.
And we just have to prove to them that we're better than them, and they can attack us all they want, except they can't hurt us. And we're still America, we still have our beliefs, and they can't change us.
I went to California a year ago, right like it was before September 11th happened, and I was really, really scared to fly. And now after this happened, I'm really, really scared to fly, and I would not get on a plane. I'm just really scared to fly. I'm scared of heights, and now after that happened, I won't get on a plane.
Lindsay, I asked you, you flew to Daytona Beach. How'd you feel about all that security?
When I first went to Daytona Beach, I was kind of scared to fly because personally I don't like flying that much as it is, and so after all this happened, I didn't feel very safe about flying. But when I got there and I saw all the security, and they even pulled me aside and they were checking my bag and stuff, and I mean, it was a pain, but I mean, I would not have wanted to get on that plane if they didn't have that security because, I mean, you never know when something's going to happen, and stuff can still get through, but it's a lot more monitored, and they have so many checkpoints before you actually get on the plane, and so I don't think anything can happen on the planes anymore.
I went to Florida this summer also, and before I got on the plane, I was kind of afraid too of what might happen. But when I saw the security, I felt more safe, and when I got off the plane, I felt like things had been much improved, and that there was a much less chance that 9/11 would happen again.
I'm not really afraid of anything that might happen because I know that we're protected, more protected than what we were before, and we shouldn't live our lives in fear because that will just ruin our lives more than anything, and we should just live our life to the fullest.
How do you think 9/11 should be commemorated in some way? How can we effectively honor the people who died?
But I think that we should definitely have some sort of memorial where the World Trade Center stood. I don't think that we should build it back up just because it wouldn't be the same, and when people went in there, it would just bring back really bad memories of what happened on that day. So I think that we should have a nice memorial there, like a park or something.
I definitely think we should rebuild it. To me, if I was from another country and I was part of the terrorist attacks and they didn't rebuild that, I'd feel kind of honored that I knocked it down, they're not going to build it back up. So they should build it up, and maybe, like he said, they should put a memorial little park in front of it or something. But I think that they should build it up, maybe not exactly the same, but to let them know that we're still growing and we're still building, and we're not going to change because of what they did.
I think they should build the towers and build them taller than they were before, just to prove to the terrorists, this is America, and if you knock us down, we're going to come back stronger than we were before.
I think it's a good idea to build them back up because it is proving to the terrorists that we're better than them and we can live on, except I know a lot of people who probably wouldn't want to set foot in that building just because it'd bring back memories, because a lot of people were talking about how they wouldn't want to go into planes. Would you seriously want to go into a building like that again?
If a memorial wasn't put up at the World Trade Center site, then they could have one in Washington, D.C., where there are also lots of different memorials from the different wars or the Washington Monument. Or also it could become a federal holiday like Martin Luther King Jr. Day or Columbus Day. And because it is a very important day and nobody will ever forget that who has lived during this time. And to remember the people who died that day, who worked to save the people at the sites, I think that it just should be remembered by maybe a federal holiday, because then everybody will at least be forced at least once a year to remember and to recognize everything that happened during that time.
I just think we need to move on with our lives. We don't have to necessarily forget what happened or any of the people that lost their lives September 11th, but it's time to build back up what we had and, just move on and stop worrying about the past.
I think that this was a big wake-up call for us, and it just proves how fragile life is, and you just have to take each day one by one, and you have to make the most of everything.
I think we should try to move on with our lives, and I'm also proud to see how many people are putting out flags and showing their patriotism more than ever, and I think they should keep that up.
It's obvious that the tragedy of September 11, 2001 will affect our country for generations. However, it is comforting to know that the true spirit of America has been evoked in our children, who are, after all, our country's future.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm Mike Redford for NBC25.